let's come to our first item, which is about went to Cabinet on Monday, preparing the Council for UK's exit from the EU. Anyone who thought this was a good idea, this paper should be required reading. Caroline, would you like to start us off with that one?
I was going to ask John to actually introduce the paper, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Am I working? Am I not working?
That was not
Just pass it again.
Yeah.
Good start. Thank you, Chair. Thanks, everybody. So yes, the front door still hasn't opened as far as I can tell, so it might still open as I'm talking, hopefully. So just a couple of things from me. So as you can tell, the exact impact of Brexit is quite difficult to ascertain. This paper is always out of date immediately after it's written. So you'll be aware that for us, a kind of no-deal scenario is probably the most problematic because it's got the most uncertainties and actually difficult to plan for. So we've been working on a worst-case scenario. Senior managers have been meeting over the last couple of months to identify risks. There are probably 7 main themes. Issues relating to workforce, issues around goods, supplies and services. Third is laws and regulations, systems and community cohesion, business and the economy, partners and contractors and funding. And that's the kind of main 7 headings. We're currently working with the departmental management teams, looking at the specific impacts under each of those headings and what needs to be done and what can be planned for at this stage. I think probably the most imminent and tangible impact is around citizenship. We know that there will be a citizenship scheme and we know that it will open at some point before March the 29th. And there's big issues for us. We've got around 20,000 EU residents in the borough. And also issues around cohesion after the Brexit vote, that there was a pattern, there's an increase in hate crime in London, in Merton, so we've got to plan for that scenario again. So the Cabinet report was considered on Monday, that was approved. The timing, Councillor Allison has Brexit under his portfolio on the Cabinet. Caroline Holland is the officer responsible. So just to set out as well that on the 12th of September the Council voted to support the People's Vote referendum. So this paper makes clear there's a corporate task group which is first meeting in about 2 weeks' time and is being reviewed monthly, every month at the start of the month by CMT. That's all I want to say at this stage. I'm very happy to take any questions, but also, given the nature of this thing and the fact it's unfolding, any suggestions are very welcome, I think, at this stage.
Sorry, Chair, just before questions come, Cabinet on Monday night, so there were 3 recommendations, 2 are for noting, and the third one, Cabinet actually agreed the approach for how we can support EU residents. So it's just there was a change on the report as published here, so I just alert you to that.
Questions? And if you could indicate which page you're on.
I think at Cabinet, someone was talking, I forget whether it was an officer or the Cabinet, about London councils and the involvement of Merton in it. I just wanted those a bit more meat. Obviously, at the Cabinet, I had a question on it, but I just wondered whether what it was that London, or what involvement we had with London councils. I think maybe it's Cabinet. I can't remember. Was it you?
Yes.
So if you could just elaborate a little bit more, that would be interested to hear what that is and our involvement.
They were, I think, doing a survey across London boroughs to see what we were all doing. So there were 17 responses, and they published a summary of the findings, and they actually had it across the 4 service areas, 4 areas around workforce, communities, financial impact and public services. And they'd also sort of summarised at the back some implications, some work that the LGA had done about the assessment and implications of a no deal on local authorities. So certainly that's what we need to pick up and work through. But they specifically mentioned some case studies about 3 examples of preparation for Brexit, and we were named as the council having done its fourth task group and what we're proposing to do. There was mention also of Brent with its EU settlement scheme registration service, and Tower Hamlets have a Brexit commission. So I think it's just showing that, as John has said, it's still very much a moving target what we're looking to do, and there's bound to be something that we will miss. So if you think there's something that we're not seeing at this stage, or you think we may need to consider is there an impact for us, then please let us know. So that's certainly what we're looking to do with the task group, is to find out as much as possible, are things going to impact on us, where they are, and what could we do to mitigate it at all possible.
And as far as is this the corporate task group, is that going to have any other members on it, or is this more of a CFG?
No, it's an officer one, and I'm the director, and then other ADs all interested, perhaps not interested, affected parties, should we say, who we've nominated to sit with us.
Can I just, on the, you mentioned Brent there, we haven't yet taken any particular initiative to encourage you to apply for service status, have we?
So, not so far, because it seems to me, if we start to raise the issue of applying for the kind of settled status, that in the scheme you can't actually apply yet. So all of the details aren't actually known. So I think that what we want to do is, as soon as the scheme is announced on what the details of how people can apply, we'll promote that widely. So far, no, we're just monitoring the situation.
On page 70, I think, the paragraph 2.52, where you're suggesting that Brexit will have an effect on businesses, and suggesting that some more people may close as a result, because won't be able to collect any business rates. Closure of businesses you are suggesting. But this is about the last paragraph 2.52, page 17.
So I think what we're flagging there is that if there's an economic downturn, which is a possibility, that conditions on the high street are very difficult, so that might reduce profit levels or actually send some businesses to the wall. That might impact on us in terms of business rates, income, is the suggestion there. But I just don't think anybody knows, because just in terms of what the impact's going to be, but it's a possibility.
Yes, we'll leave it for this time.
We haven't got Charles Schwinn here because he's unwell, but he is going to pick up on the study of this area, and in fact, he wants to hold back and absorb the implications of having so that he's building on that rather than duplicating it, which I think is a correct decision. But you have seen, Julia, you've talked to the CAB already?
Yes,
Yeah.
with Merton and I, the Citizens Advice Bureau, and with the South West London Law Centre, just to talk about what they're doing at the moment and what sort of impact they're anticipating. So we'll be able to feed that back to you in due course.
I think if in turn we have ideas for particular organisations, I've already had a vote through there in our unassigned trust.
Well, not for unassigned trust, but in her capacity as a trustee of the Polish Family Association. And they're very keen to get involved in the same.
Can I just, yeah. So I'd just like to say on the issue of advice and support to residents, obviously there's work that the council can do through its own kind of comms channels. Also, we do grant funds to a significant extent, Citizens Advice Bureau, the 2 law centres, and we've got a very good advice infrastructure in the borough, so which is quite different to other boroughs, I think, and that level of support is far higher than many of our neighbours. So actually the support there is really good, and I think that is going to be the difficulty. The process for applying is likely to be online. I think you're going to have to submit forms, get stuff translated. It's not going to be easy if you're not particularly literate in your own language. If you haven't got a large income, there's a fee of I think £35. I think you may well, those kind of 20,000 people who are likely to be eligible, a significant proportion of those will need to help. But at least we've got that infrastructure there, I would say.
Just in terms of that, how does that infrastructure help hard-to-reach groups?
That's a very good question, but we obviously grant fund MBSC, who have got a very extensive list of all the organisations in the borough. Organisations, there's over 650 registered, I think, with MBSC. So the network through MBSC can push information out to those groups. So again, our funding, we can't fund all of those groups, but we can put communications out via MBSC, which will get out kind of quite extensively to signpost people into the advice and support that's available.
Yes. Sorry, this is slightly political point to make, but there, in our work in the communities, we find that there's a bit of suspicion of authority, of institutions like the council, like the government. That is in part overcome by the services being provided by voluntary sector organisations and from sort of community groups. I feel that in some way that's been exacerbated by what's happened over the wind rush. For people from overseas, there's a suspicion that there is a hostile environment, and if they engage with authorities about their status, then that might cause some problems. So it probably is an appropriate thing for us to be working very much with the voluntary sector to provide advice to lots of people. Wind rushes are concerning at the moment amongst lots of people, and it certainly was an issue that came up not just from people from the Caribbean community and from the old Commonwealth. As a politician during the election in May, it was often repeated to us. I don't know whether other colleagues want to say anything about that from people from Europe who felt that this was going to affect them too. So again, it's part of the point about that working with external bodies to provide trust and reassurance that they're the people.
Presumably the council has a portion of the EU citizens who are its own employees. Are you going to reassure them as an employer?
So certainly at the moment we only have a small number who've actually declared on the system. It's currently 145 out of 5,900 staff, but we're doing some work. We have a staff survey coming up, so we want to see if we can encourage people to actually come forward. But it's not just our staff, it's also they may be married to someone of his EU status. So it's trying to make sure that we can work with them to see what can be done to make sure they get the second status as quick as possible.
John, you mentioned some 20,000 EU citizens, and I'm aware, in my work, that there's quite a spectrum there in terms of skills levels, kind of jobs they hold and so on. And they will presumably be impacted differently and take different views. Do we have any understanding of where the different groups are within the borough? Their needs might be, like for example, if the Polish Families Association is based in Cricket Green, is that where we expect to find most of our Polish EU nationals?
That's a good question. I think that the east of the borough I mentioned in particular is where you're going to find quite a lot of East Europeans. And obviously coincide the Polish Families Association can we talk to quite regularly. So what I would say is I think the issue is you're definitely right amongst that community of 20,000, the skills and knowledge is going to be quite different. The worry is that if a significant proportion of that group don't register for settled status and then apply for services or benefits, that they won't be able to get them. And then the difficulty for us is that they can then apply to us under the name, of course, to public funds, and the name of the Act that covers that, but we would have such duty counted towards them. So working with those community organisations to send out messages to say, so that people know that they're entitled and they know how to go about it and they know what support is there, is definitely needed. And I think you're probably right, we probably can need to do some further work with those groups, identifying those communities within Merton.
And I suppose the other challenge that we're looking at is we may have some information that was collected for a particular purpose, and can we use it for different purposes? So we know the wards where certain nationalities are, but are we then able to target communications and things? So that's certainly one of the things we want to do as part of the task group, is then explore that. If we've got information for one purpose, how easily are we able to, if at all, use it to actually try and help them?
In reference to page 11, there's a point around councils exploring how many children we have to go through the settlement scheme. I was wondering whether we already knew that number, and if we don't, when we might know it. And subsequently, what the implications might be if any of those young people in care were at risk of not securing their status.
That's a very good question as well. I'm going to see Children's Schools and Families DMT next week, and that's one of the questions on my list. So they're well aware of the situation. I'm pretty sure that they will take extensive steps to identify any children or who are either looked after or care leavers, to make sure that they get the right support to register. But I'll probably have a fuller answer next week on that one in terms of specifics around that.
I suppose just obviously our corporate parenting role will probably step in there to see how we can help support them and do what needs to be done to make sure that they do get their second status. So I'd like to think that's certainly an area where we should be able to step in and do that. But we'll find out from sort of central links as to what we can do.
Maybe go forward to the corporate parenting group. It'd be good to have that, go forward to that group.
Okay. I think what we take out of this is that it's incumbent upon all of us to be aware of EU nationals within our own wards. I certainly found at election time that it's quite a job persuading that they're entitled to vote. So I don't think they're necessarily tuned into all the communication sources that the rest of us are. And also, we do have responsibility for social cohesion. I possibly would hope that there would not be a repeat of the spike in hate crime that we witnessed around the time of the referendum. Again, it's something we've got to be.
Yeah, it's in the report, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, the only thing in the report, I picked up that it didn't actually give us the figures of Merton, and it showed 3,000 allegations of hate crime, but it was actually UK rather than Merton Central.
but I take the point that we don't want to have, I think as a borough we do try to make sure that everybody's.
I'm sure Neil Furlow will keep us.
It's another area to make sure that people are helping themselves within different faith groups and different.
Yes.
We can confirm that Cabinet has actually backed the draft Brexit agreement.
Not this cabinet.
We're reserving.
No, the proper cabinet.
The real cabinet.
Oh, no, I think it's happened a bit longer. 5 hours.
Yeah, but she's done it.
We take you on to our next item, which is about the target operating model. This is on page 23. Please go through this one.
If I start then sort of hand over to, so obviously Sophie sends her apologies, she's on a peer review at the moment, so she's unable to join us of course. So I think for those of you who've been around a number of years will be aware that we do a target operating model for all of our services in a couple of years. It's a 5-year plan looking ahead at what we expect our services to be like. The report sets out how many there are, so there's a different approach for departments, and particularly in our do like to have a not-for-profit, which brings its own challenges when people have to bring people. So we set out the approach, what we do, what the emerging themes are, and so hopefully if you have any questions, hopefully Ed and I will be able to address them.
David.
Thank you. Well, it's good to be reminded that the TOMS started in 2009. There was a great deal of opposition to bringing in Deloitte to help us take a radical approach to the way in which the council operated and to squeeze out efficiencies. And one of the benefits of using an external provider like that was that they introduce a degree of challenge that self-challenge doesn't do as efficiently. So my question is, have we got a bit too comfortable with the TOMS model? Here we are, we're sort of 9 years on. I would be the first to admit that if you use an external agency, they will just bring in their latest methodology and try to impose that. But nevertheless, it does provide a challenge. So that's why I'm asking the question: what rigour are we getting out of the TOMS procedures now, and has it got a bit stale?
So whilst we had the process back in 2009, departments started their own, and so we're on our 3rd iteration of the departmental ones. I would actually say they're improving. So as you look back on the first iterations, I think there's a vast improvement as to what the new TOMS are about. And we've set up an internal challenge process. So I challenged Chris Lees on his TOMS, he challenges me, and Hannah and Rachel challenged each other, and then Jed was alongside with Sophie and Ed, who read them all. So that's why the number of TOMS in VNR was particularly useful to pick up where there are discrepancies, where there are things that don't make sense, and to go back. So we've approached it where we have each layer lead has done work and sat down with the authors and gone through those. So I think we've got smarter about how we do it, but recognise that at some point we may need to do something different. So actually having an overall approach to the TOM, what the emerging things are, again, that's relatively new, so we didn't necessarily do that with the first lot of TOMs that we did. It was very much a service TOM that was done, whereas now we're sort of saying, okay, so what's picking up, what do we need to do, how does it feed into our service improvement programme? So I think we are utilising the outcomes better than we have done previously.
I might have misunderstood it, so let me go through, I think, the process is. The TOMs bring into life the sort of strategic direction given by the business plan, is that correct? The driver for them is the business plan, according to paragraph 3.4.
So I think ultimately the idea is for the TOMs to certainly be informed very strongly by the MTFS, because you can't make a 5-year plan without taking into account the savings that have been agreed or are being put forward. So the strongest influence, I think, comes from the MTFS side.
But the business plan drives it. 3.4 is correct,
Yeah.
isn't it? And the business plan is driven by the corporate plan and the MTFP, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. And the corporate plan is driven by the manifesto and the community plan. That's correct. That's the way I've just worked it out here.
Yeah, as the diagram.
I just don't begin to understand how this dovetails with political plan, because you did this latest one was set up in December 2017. The first draft was April 2018, a month before the local elections, where there might have been a change of a party, where there might have been a manifesto, either of which there was, of course. How do you set a 5-year plan without knowing where the political impetus is coming? Because an incoming council would only have a chance of getting involved in this 2 years on when you refresh it. Surely your starting point should be the political calendar.
So I think the original timeline for this was slipped in order to allow for the first draft was in April, but then subsequent drafts were supposed to be, the original timetable was for publication in September, October time. And I suppose the idea behind that was to say that once the local elections had taken place, given that there may be considerable changes, but if there needed to be considerable changes to the TOMs, there would be sufficient time for a second and third draft for those to be taken into account. That's right.
Is that a sensible way to do it, though? You shouldn't want to start with the manifesto of even the governing party, if there was a manifesto. Start with that as your starting point. It just seems to me to start just before an election seems a bizarre timing to me. Well, why is it driven by the political calendar?
It never has been, so that's why we've done it on the 2-year refresh. I mean, that's something we can take back and feed into the next rounds that we do, but that wasn't the way that it has been done.
Because even the 5-year thing seems weird. Again, I thought it should be 4 years to dovetail with the political calendar. The whole thing is to be put there, and people have forgotten there's a political drivers to the whole thing.
It depends on some of the services, so not always, I would say.
Thank you.
Actually, quite linked to what Paul was talking about. When was the community plan last done?
All I know is it's being refreshed at the moment, so
It's 2013. And it was meant to drive, according to the same thing, it's meant to drive the business plan and then link the corporate plan and the MTFP, etc., the waterfall down. I'm just curious as to why that hasn't been refreshed on the time frame that it was meant to, because it was meant to be a new one this year, wasn't it? I know that's not directly linked to the TOM, but it's part of what comes above it, for want of a better description.
But as I said, it's currently in the process of being refreshed, and Downtown is leading on that, so taking it forward with community groups.
Who is actually, sorry, maybe I just heard you, who is actually driving it? I mean, Andrew Wakefield, bless his cotton socks, was the architect of a previous, if not more than one previous, community plan.
Yeah.
Who is actually driving it forward? I think it's kind of very much ties into what Councillor Cole is saying. I'm not quite sure what's driving the council, or who is driving the council, or whether the council is merely happening.
Which come back, I think, to
Darren Tully is leading on the community plan refresh, so he's the fire and borough commander.
Right.
So that's why I think we've struggled to find someone from the community who's able to take the place of Andrew Wakefield. So that's why there may be some time difficulties in doing that. So Darren is leading that.
I just wanted to say that I thought what Councillor Cowler had said sounds very sensible, and I think just because we've done something in a particular way in the past doesn't mean to say that we should just stick to that because that's how we've always done it. And I think we should give serious consideration to the sensible one that he was honest.
And in the light of the community plan, we can kind of endorse that. If we're straying from some of the feeders into the, some of the processes, they're not working for us, then probably does need looking, we're looking very quickly.
Is what we're saying here within the drive to find savings, remorselessly, we're almost losing sight of the vision stuff. We expect
I think you're touching on probably the right theme out of at least the questioning and comments on a cross-party basis here. It's just that I don't quite know who's pulling the levers. Can I sort of add to that? I'd go so far as to say that for the majority of councillors, they don't really know what the local strategic partnership's up to, and what role it has, and what influence it has on the way in which the council and indeed the other agencies operate with one another, and the impact that they have on one another. And it strikes me that if we are not aware of that, then actually the local strategic partnership is determining the political agenda and not the elected representatives.
Well, I would just say that we do scrutinise the report from the partnership each year.
Yeah, I agree.
We perhaps ought to be a bit more challenging about that. We tend to accept it, but it would be good perhaps to ask them more closely.
Councillor Arson, do you have anything that you'd like to say on what's been said? Well, I had my hand up a while, I think we've gone across, and I'm interested in what they do think.
I was only looking quizzical earlier because obviously I'm in a slightly different position, but it doesn't certainly feel as though politics has stopped. I think with the community plan, there's had to be an element of pragmatism to ensure that there's somebody of a sufficient level to be able to drive that side of things through. But also I think that Merton has been relatively consistent with its community plans over a number of years, and there hasn't been a sense within the community of let's have a radical tear it all up and start again. The general approach about bridging the gap between the east and west, providing opportunities for people have remained fairly constant, and you know, it's not for me to criticise the partnership, but to suggest other ways for you to deal with them. I would be very conscious about not wishing the process of Tom's to stop whilst you could argue, let's not do anything in from 2020 onwards, because within 2 years of that there could be a change of administration, there could be a change of direction. That wouldn't be a sensible approach, and you'd end up with some form of sclerosis. I don't want to guess what officers' views are, because they have a different relationship to us than we do to them. But we would certainly encourage them to continue working, to continue providing advice, knowing what our priorities are throughout, knowing that we were going into the election on the basis of, you know, it's very difficult financial times, but the broad politics of the administration group was fairly consistent. It would continue to be pragmatic, would continue to respond to the circumstances affecting us nationally and globally, but also not to discourage them from bearing in mind the inputs and thoughts that might come through from opposition groups, so that should there be a change of administration, they can realise the plans after the election. But we wouldn't have wanted them to stop doing that work just because there was an election coming up, because that might mean that there'd be a long period without any work being conducted.
I wasn't saying stop the Toms before an election, I was saying dovetail the political calendar with the Toms calendar, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying stop doing it because an election's coming, I'm just saying dovetail it.
Okay, I'll revise that and say that you could say that instead of doing a 5-year plan, because there might be an election coming up, why not make it a 7-year plan, so that you don't don't cover a period of potential political change. And I don't think that would be healthy. I think that there needs to be a regular sort of process for this, so that we can continue to operate in a relatively business-like manner.
We did ask for examples of lessons learned and some, which are on page 26. I'll ask you if you'd like to comment or enlarge on those comments. And perhaps my question is there a silver bullet in here that's going to deliver the radical savings we haven't yet spotted to help us into 2025?
No. As I said before, when you look at sort of the challenges we've got, certainly directors are now working up proposals in light of what they've said that their TOMs are, to see how we can address the gap that we will not have £20 million worth of savings by the time we get to March Council. But it's a direction of travel that we will have in front of you. So certainly some of the proposals coming out around just, do we know enough? So I don't know if you've seen the Merton data pages, that we have a separate website which is drawing together different sources of published information. So it's pinpointing people to that, making sure they're aware of that, how they can anticipate changes in demand for their services, how we can approach the channel shift, what strategies need to be refreshed as part of this. That's what's sort of coming out of the TOMs. I don't know if there's anything, Ed, that you want to say around particular areas which may have something.
Not that I specifically want to talk about departments, TOMs themselves.
Yeah.
The five emerging themes are the broad things that kind of cut across most people's TOMs. I think if you were specifically asking about lessons learned, we're conducting an exercise at the moment over the next sort of month and a bit to feed back on all elements of the process. including kind of how they were put together and timelines and things like that, so that would be part of the consideration.
And we can say the feedback then in sort of whether it should be more aligned to a political timetable or what that would mean then, because certainly we thought we had allowed for some political input if there was going to be a change in administration, but clearly you don't feel that was enough. So we would just look at then the timings of what that then means for us, and clearly how it dovetails also then, because come 2020 we were saying that the end of the London First Council, because we're going to be London First Council by then, so what comes after that, and dovetailing with that as well.
We'll start hearing about 110%. Okay, unless there are further questions. Thank you very much. Coming on to the page 31, the London pilot with business rates retention. If I can ask you to focus on what we need to know, and not everything that there is to know. So if you could steer us through the options and tell us how you're tackling what you're going to guide us towards.
So, I suppose what you need to know, so the government announced that there was going to be aiming towards 100% retention of business rates. What that doesn't mean is that we keep 100% of business rates that we collect. What it means is there will be sort of a baseline amount of funding we're allowed to keep, and we keep 100% of that. Because clearly if there are 3 councils in London who collect more business rates than boroughs, so London and any authority is not going to be allowed to keep all reserved business rates. Or some areas they would never be able to be funded from their business rates. In order to maximise the return to London, in London if they entered into pooling all of the business rates, then we were allowed to keep an extra element of it, and we were allowed to keep the growth. Again, we only keep the growth in the business rate, so if there's additional businesses that come into the borough, you keep that until there's a revaluation, and then it all gets rebased again. So certainly there was a revaluation in 2017. They're looking to bring forward a further revaluation, so again the length of time by which you get your additional growth is diminishing. Clearly there's lots of speculation now around, so the government changed to say we're not going to give you 100% of your business rates, you're only going to give you 75% of your business rates. Quite what that means for pools that have been set up, we are still waiting to hear. So again, this was a pilot purely for 1819 in London. We signed up for 1 year. We have to re-sign up if we want to go for another year. We're waiting to hear also if we're allowed to have another year, and then whether all boroughs will re-sign up to it. And it's not been confirmed whether it will be 75% or 100%. What has been confirmed is that the public health grant will not be rolled in, so all of our other grants were rolled in. So if when it comes to the business plan paper, you'll see there's no revenue support grant for 2018-19. It's disappeared because that was rolled into the business rates number. So we've currently got 5 million in 1920. That will be rolled into the business rate number if the pool was agreed. Clearly, I would say with the failure of Devon's, House of Fraser, there's been some speculation as to whether business rates is going to be a sustainable funding for authorities. Amazon and that, if you've got more online businesses, then they're not paying the same amount of business rates. So whilst at one point it did seem there was going to be a steady increase in the amount of business rates and therefore funding for local authorities, that appears to be, I would say, at risk. Certainly in the budget announcement there was, if you have toilets, there's free business rates for toilets, increase in the level of the business rates threshold before you actually pay business rates, and there's also been an appeal one last week by supermarkets who had ATMs, they no longer have to pay separate business rates for that. That could potentially lose us nearly £1 million if it's backdated to 2010. So there's quite a few complexities, so I'm not sure that we can now say business rates is the way to get us out of our funding situation, and we need to keep that under review. Tesco's is sort of mentioning to government and trying to lobby government to say that business rates needs to be adjusted. But certainly at this moment in time, we're trying to make sure that we can maximise the level of business rates available to us. The GLA clearly is a significant partner to that, and as one of the appendices is there was a strategic investment pot for some of the monies, and we've got the schemes that have been proposed, they've been agreed. So as part of the South London Partnership, there's £4 million coming back to us to enable us to develop smart cities. That would be available to us if we weren't as part of the pilot. We are potentially going to get an extra £3 million from Merton itself as being part of the pilot. We haven't built that into the budget because it's not definite, it's not guaranteed, and we don't know it until we actually do some of our returns and close the accounts in June, July next year. So we're waiting to see how that money will come through. City of London are managing the pilot on behalf of all the other boroughs. We've had to have additional monitoring to try and see what we're doing about it. The appeals of businesses has a major impact on the business rate income. Certainly in the City of London and Westminster, that can have major implications because one year they had 25% reduction in their business rates because of the number of appeals. Valuation Agency has a major backlog of appeals, and depending on when someone has appealed, the appeal can go back to either 2015 or 2010, so that then have provisions against what the business rate income is going to be. As that becomes your main source of income, it becomes more critical. That's probably it in a nutshell. There's quite a lot of information in the report, so happy to answer questions.
What I'd like to ask you first, Caroline, all 32 boroughs came into the report, didn't they?
Yes.
So it's a little difficult, isn't it, for, you would get a sense of either whether the majority of boroughs want to continue or want to drop out.
We did try and do a poll when the business rate system changed, and we couldn't get agreement at that stage. And that was even at an officer level. So because of how we dealt with the winners and losers, but the pool has said there's a no detriment agreement, so no one in the pool will be worse off than if they had saved their sign. And I think that's helped people stay in. But we're in a political dimension, so some people may not want to. And if we don't get the 100% retention, that could have an impact. Because other pools that have been set up may get it. So there is that challenge and tension as well.
Thank you. First question, just as a sort of point of knowledge, what capacity do councils have to fluctuate rates? Do you have any capacity at all?
Many years ago we did have the ability to set the multiplier. We no longer have that right. And indeed government sets that and sets the level of increase. There was talk that we will be able to reduce it if we wanted to, but that would be the only discretion we have.
And with reference to that specifically, so if you had a target area where you felt there wasn't enough shops and therefore that you could, in theory, reduce rates, but you don't have that power yet?
We have, I'm not sure what we do have is a discretionary rate relief scheme. So where we do, we've got 5 areas where we try and target if there's new businesses coming in or expanding businesses, we are able to give them some relief. So we do have that scheme currently set up and we're able to do that, but we don't actually reduce the multiplier. We actually sort of give them a discount.
A post-multiplier subsidy. Okay, thank you. Do you think that it incentivises growth, the rate retention, which has been one of the key reasons that it's been delegated down, is that it incentivises councils to create growth? And is there evidence?
I think it's very difficult in London with the space that we have to incentivise growth. Most of our, there's certain brownfield sites how we deal with those to make sure that they are being maximised, but there's very little land in London that isn't already developed or has a specific site. Also with the permitted development rights, there's quite a lot of our businesses changing to residential, because the value to the landlords is actually higher as residential than business. So we've seen that in Willow Lane, and we've seen that near Plough Lane as well. So that's a further challenge to us.
Sorry, if I could just follow. Notwithstanding the fact that we're currently pooling in London, and therefore we do have a ratio between what we keep and what we pool and you apply for through the SIP, do you think the principle of rate retention, certainly 100% rate retention, but any model thereof, risks growing divergence between fundings available to different councils based on their tax base?
Based on that?
Tax base, based on their wealth as a council.
Well, that's where the fair funding formula comes back in. So the government will still look at what a baseline level of funding will be and adjust there accordingly. So at the moment going forward, we're assuming a certain level of funding from business rates. That could change as part of fair funding. So that's a further challenge and risk there.
I'm sorry, the final question with regards to that fair funding and the sort of catchment. What do you think the negative impact of the end of the no detriment clause that's proposed for 2019-2020 will be?
We don't fully know at this stage, but we think it has less impact than we thought it would. But we need to do some further work on it based on the information that will come from each of the boroughs. So whilst I think it was good to get the sign up from the boroughs when we've actually gone and London councils have done some further modelling, it doesn't look as if that was a bigger benefit as we thought it would be. There's some thresholds and safeguards already built in which may offset if you lose the no detriment, but we need to actually work that through.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Thank you for this, Caroline. Three very simple questions. I've noticed more shops are filling in their windows. You've got Beloved Merton
Yes.
on the corner, and there's one in Lowmore, we don't have any shops in Lowmore, where they filled it in. And we were discussing whether it goes back to the window tax, if people can't pay less rates. Do they pay less rates if they filled in their windows?
Certainly the one on the corner, which used to be Swinton's,
Yes.
is being taken over by an estate agent chain, but they were delaying in fitting it out. So because it kept getting flag posters put up, we wanted to encourage them to do something with it and pay for occupation. So that's what's certainly gone on there. So it's not that they pay less rates, it's just we wanted to make sure that
Yes.
it looked better
Yes.
and was being
Yes, it does.
used. So
But does it mean if the shops do that, they will pay less of the business rate? So it's a myth.
yes.
Thank you. And it's just because it came up, it was curiosity. And where you do have perhaps empty shops is where the Lovemore window is in. If you're trying to encourage businesses in, can you say to them, we can give you a short period of no business rates until you get settled, to try and encourage businesses into the area?
So we've got on our website, as I've mentioned, this discretionary scheme, so it targets 5 particular areas. So it's whether that one's in there, but it is, if a new business is coming in, we would look and then we'll set out the criteria as to how we would support them with a reduction on their business rates, depending on the level of business rates, because I think if it's below 6,000, the rate of value, then they may not be eligible because of the way that the government does the small business rate scheme. So, but certainly on our website there is information there.
And does that apply to pop-up shops? Do they pay business rates or not?
Certainly they should be paying those business rates, yes.
Thank you.
the Chancellor's announcement in the last budget about reducing business rate for small businesses, did we bear the cost of that via this, or is that something the government
Currently, the government has said that they will fund that,
Right.
but depending on how long that then continues, it could then come out of the pot that comes back to us, but we don't know.
Can I just ask you, John, about the, you mentioned Borough Lane Estate where commercial zones have been converted to residential. Did we not look at an Article 4 direction to try and prevent that for, at least for Wimbledon Town Centre?
It was refused.
It was refused.
I think we've got one, we have one for Wimbledon Town Centre, but elsewhere it was refused.
Sorry, can you explain that a bit more? What
So-
it is, I don't know what it is.
So as I mentioned,
Articles 1, 2 and 3 first.
I think there was Article 4, so permitted development. So the government made to make it easier with our planning regulations. They said if you have certain businesses, or if you have a business, you can convert it to residential accommodation without going through certain planning regulations. We tried to protect certain areas of the borough, and the government allowed you to apply to protect certain businesses or certain areas of an authority, so that couldn't be done. They would still need to go through planning to be able to do that, and we would refuse certain areas to be able to do that.
And who makes that decision?
Government did. So,
I think the government refused most of the applications.
Thanks.
Okay, so just to sum this up really, we're verifying net 3 million thus far with the pool. In addition, we get a share of the 4 million granted to the Smart City project. Which other boroughs?
so that's part of the South London Partnership.
Yeah,
So
okay.
do you want to know which one? Sorry.
No. I'm just saying, do we encourage you to continue down this?
Well, I'm certainly in favour of the pool because we've got more money than we would have otherwise had. We've got some strategic investment monies that we're able to play, but it does depend on what's going to happen in 2020 as well as to what that impact has for us. But certainly at this moment in time, whilst we have business rates as a funding source, it makes sense to see how we can maximise that.
Well, no, just to say that it was the political leaderships agreed at London councils on previous occasions, and we signed the negotiation about how the pool should be divided up afterwards as well, and so it would be dependent on the political leaderships of the boroughs again to agree it, and who knows what the views of other councils might be. There always been as sort of pro sort of the pooling of sovereignty across large numbers of seats as others.
But certainly by the time I come back in January, we should know the outcomes because it will be announced in the settlement on the 6th of December.
Right. Thank you for that. We come on to the business plan. Three. What I'm proposing to do here is to ask Caroline for the big picture stuff in particular. 2020, just very briefly. I think most of you will have attended, many of you will have attended the briefing. Is that correct? We have, so you're familiar with that. Then I'm going to look at the specific savings that affect us, two very small savings, just to make sure we understand and comment on those. Then I'm going to ask for any feedback from the panel, from their scrutiny of the parts of the budget that affect them. We will take a look at the capital programme as it affects our remit, those four items, and decide whether we want to make any references back to capital. So, Caroline, first of all, the
There's so the old graph would do, but that's, yeah. Tell us when it all starts.
Yeah, we didn't quite do the graph of do. I suppose just to, so in September we took the first update of the business plan to Cabinet. At that time we had said that we had a gap in 1920 of 1.3 million, rising to 18.5 by the end of 22-23. What we do is go through, look at our provision for pay inflation, look at our prices, and we've had some further questions around the prices, but we allow for 1.5%, which is below CPI, which has remained at 2.4% today. There's been no increase, and certainly below RPI, which is normally higher. It has occasionally gone lower. There is, because of some of the budgets that budget managers hold, may not always be prone to inflationary increases, we have kept the provision for price inflation at 1.5%. We do have a provision for slightly higher inflation increases that people and managers can come along and request significant increases in their area, but on the whole we have managed in that way. We've also looked, because we said that there would be a further increase in the gap of 2.9 million if we actually increase the inflation percentage to 2%. So not even at the current rate of CPI. We went through and looked at the grants to see if there was any update in the level of grants, and certainly one thing we did have some improved better care fund announcements, and there has been no announcements as to if they continue past 2021. Adult Social Care has committed some of those monies, so we have added that loss of grant to our gap. We also set out what the current increases in council tax were into the assumptions around the business plan. We've allowed 2.99% increase in 2019-20, which is the highest level we can do without having a referendum. A referendum will cost us roughly £300,000. 5% on council tax gives us roughly sort of £900,000. So we would need a very significant increase in council tax to make it worthwhile doing the referendum. We've assumed 2% increases in the years after that, because that's also currently the assumed maximum level in those years. The adult social care precept, we've allowed for a 2% increase in 2019-20 and nothing in future years, because again there's been no announcement as to what will happen in those years. The paper may be out by the end of June next month, so we'll see if that does have any answers around that, or in the budget settlement as to whether there is further flexibility as to the level of council tax increases that we do have. We also did an update on our collection fund, looking at the levels of business rates and council tax collection, how we have done against that, how much we had to pay over to the GLA and the government, and as a result of that, we've actually managed to reduce the level of the gap in 2019-20 to £700,000, but the overall gap by the end of 22-23 has increased to 20.5 million. So we set out savings targets for each department based on that gap, keeping with the same ratio of, if we do it at sort of 1 for E&R and services, 0.75 for community housing and 0.5 for children's schools and families. So we've kept that same level of reduction and additional sort of care, shall we say, for the two front-facing demand-led services. What has then come forward as part of the October paper to Cabinet and onto the scrutiny panels, we've asked all directors and all services to say, are there savings already in the business plan which currently equate to around 6 million? Are you on track to deliver those? Do you need to amend some of those? So children's schools and families have come forward and amended some of theirs, but that's an ongoing process. So as we go through and coming in December, there may be some further ones where people said, oh, now that we're looking at them, we want to actually swap some of those out, as well as some new savings coming through. So new savings within adults, children's schools and families, and within For those who were at the Financial Monitoring Task Group last night, we discussed the capital programme, the fact that we have a 10-year funding model. So we've got the indicative programme and changes to the end of our current programme that we brought in front of you to have a look at. And we will be bringing sort of further savings to the December Cabinet to see how close we get to addressing that gap. I think that's probably enough now to then take any questions around either the high level picture or if you don't want to go into the detail of the savings.
Sorry, did you say we weren't doing savings, we're just doing the
No, any in response to questions relating to what Caroline just told us about the mega picture, if you like, the strategic picture.
Yeah. No, I think I've got that.
So,
Caroline, thank you very much. Just one quick question. Throughout Merton, there seems to be quite good building work going on in the flats. Is that generating much more council tax income?
We make an allowance normally around 0.5% increase in our council tax base, as it were, to allow for additional flats and that to come through. Certainly, I'll see if I've got something in here around what has actually come through.
And you couldn't put a figure on that?
We do a council tax base return which shows what that increase is likely to be and whether we're on or off target, but that's what I was just trying to see whether we are or not.
okay,
the gap in 2021 is still enormous, isn't it? I mean, there are days when I would like still to be leaving the council, but there are nights when I'm pleased I'm not. There is an enormous ask of the council to or the departments to close the gap in 2021. And how realistic is it that we are going to find means of doing that through a savings programme, or do we have to take more radical action elsewhere, or are we being over pessimistic? And what would be, and if so, what would be a more optimistic number?
19, 18, 17, 16.
It's not going to be those. So, an area where I would say that I'm being cautious rather than pessimistic. So I mentioned the Improvement Care Fund. So at the moment there's been no announcement that that will continue. So when we took the paper to Cabinet in September, we said if it were to continue, the savings would be 18.7 million. But because at the moment, if they were to continue, Adult Social Care have not committed all of the money that they're currently using on an ongoing basis, so therefore there will be that reduction. So that's why we've gone for 20 million as the overall gap. And if we give an announcement with regards to that funding continuing, then we will be able to readjust the savings targets from there. So that's certainly an area where we're hoping to plan for the worst and hope for the best, because some authorities are saying there will be funding. They're not anticipating any further changes to that. So, but until I've actually seen it written down, I'm not convinced. Especially if you get underneath some of the budget numbers or graphs that came out from the budget the other Monday. Whilst there was an increase in spend for the public sector, once you take out the 20.5 billion for health, the monies for protected departments, local authorities, the money's going down. So there's no overall change in direction for us, and therefore that's what I want to see. So certainly we are looking at the level of the capital programme do we need, and I'm challenging quite hard on people coming forward with bids for schemes to see whether we do need that, because that impacts on our revenue. We're looking at the collection rate, we're looking at as much as possible to see what can and can't be done. So it's not all savings or not all impact on services, but it's a big ask. We're not alone. And indeed we had a discussion last night again with the Financial Monitoring Task Group around clearly the Northamptonshire running into financial difficulties, but some of that is then, is it they weren't doing enough to address the situation, or were they sleepwalking into it, whereas there are other authorities, East Sussex, where they are saying they can provide the level of services that they want to and afford to. And as more of that comes on, then there are big issues. So that's what we're trying to get underneath with the comprehensive spending review, to see whether there is more cake for us. Because the fair funding review, we're floating on the same cake, and clearly at the moment we think London will lose because the counties and other people get everything better, but not necessarily demonstrating better need.
No, I mean, all I was going to say really was it may not be cause for optimism, but anecdotally when I'm meeting with other people in similar position, finance and cabinet members across London, I'm struck that I'm not the most miserable person in that room. But whether that's cause for optimism or whether it's just that I have...
Oh, must be a miserable room, Mark.
But bear in mind, that kind of enormous gap in the not too distant future is something shared by everyone, and the distance into the future that some are facing it is nearer to now than it is for us in many cases.
Carl, if I just ask you to sort of inject what we have now, i.e. maximum increase in council tax plus the 2% ASC reset, plus the 3 million from the pool, plus you mentioned the better care fund. What does all that add up to?
Well, certainly the increases in the council tax are shown on page 98. So you can see the 91.8 rising to 94 and 96. So that's already built in. The 3 million from the pool is not built in because it's a one-off. And therefore need to see what does happen when that does come through and crystallise. And my intention is to put that into, if it's available, the balance in the budget reserve to smooth the huge gap and precipice that we have in 2021.
So, sorry, just going back to the council tax, is that that's a 2% now?
2.99%
oh,
plus 2% social care.
Right. Let me display that understanding.
So for 18-19 we are saying that equivalent figure is 87 million.
Yeah.
So it's going from 87 to 91.8 with the increases of council tax and private social care reset. Plus an increase in the base to allow for additional residential properties.
But in combination, though, those elements are worth about 4.5 million. I mean, just call it 5% for really reckoning purposes at 800 to 900,000 per
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is not reflected in these figures.
No, that's it.
That's it.
Yes, that's what I said. So the equivalent figure in 18-19 is 87 million.
Right. But you haven't carried that forward then into the remaining years of the NTFS?
Yes. So it goes from the 91 to 94 to 96 to 98. So it only goes up by 2% in those future years because that's the maximum you can do at this
Right,
stage.
no, that was my point.
Yes, yeah.
So if we make, and I don't like being taken out of what we know, but if we were to assume the allowance to increase at a higher rate,
Then that would help us. Yes. I used to not have the increase in council tax in there and say that was an option for us, but I think those days are gone. So we don't have the council tax increase. Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that was because during the last administration there was an assumption of a freeze, so the assumption of a freeze was built into the medium-term financial strategy during that 4-year period, whereas this time we haven't set that going into the financial situation is, you know, the loss in government funds is so bad that we haven't set that on this occasion. So on this occasion we now reverting to what the government is assuming, and we're not contradicting that at this stage. Because the government is assuming that we take the full amounts as well. That's an excuse. That's not us. That's the government assuming that in their figures that the councils should take.
And they have been too, haven't they? So I don't mean to.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a choice to hold the council tax. Zero increase, but you know, we're paying the price on that.
16 million.
And we lost the gas tax freeze grant.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go from macro to micro. Take you on to pages 107, 108. Two quite, in the scheme of things, modest proposed savings. And the impact assessments, equality impact assessments on pages 134 and 138, showing how who would be affected by that and in what ways.
Do I need any explanation of these, or who knows?
Yeah, information from the concession, the blue badge charge for blue badges. It's a maximum charge of £10 a badge. And it's stated that the charge is not enforced. So I just really want some clarification about that, because that really handled. It's sort of stated that it's not collected, is that?
So currently on our website we say there may be a charge, but we don't actually enforce it, but the majority of other boroughs, including county councils, do charge if you're successful. So we're saying if you're successful, would you then pay this fee? So, and it's
Is that a blanket charge on sort of everybody, irrespective of means and so on?
Because if people will get a higher mobility allowance, so there's sort of enable them to pay, and you get the badge for 3 years. So it's not an annual charge, it is for every 3 years.
3-year charge?
Yes.
I'm not sensing any great consent. No.
I think that's about £3. Just over £3 a year, so I guess it's a shame to have to do it, but I suppose if you're...
And this is why the area is looking at sort of income generation or charging policies and things like that in order to reduce the impact on some of our services. So clearly there are, I think, many savings that we would love do not have to do. But certainly this one we think for people who are then successful, so it might put off some people who would speculatively apply. But then if they are apply and are unsuccessful, then we don't charge them.
Out of interest, you had a lot. I mean, I'm just interested generally because I get hearsay in my ward about the level of blue patches and whether people are you finding that there's an increase of blue badges being given out?
Perhaps applied for, but not necessarily given out. But I can confirm those numbers to Julie if that would help. So it's easy to
We've got this charge as well. And I want to give them actual numbers to want people to put up but find it a general need that people that aren't.
Yes, I would concur with that. I mean, I think particularly where I do have requests from residents who ask for disabled bays to be taken out when the user is gone. I also know we have now that we are responsible for determining the issue of blue badges as opposed to the GP. It needs to be a rigorous process, do you know?
Well, that's true too.
Okay, so that's blue badges and the discretionary rate for this charity sports clubs, etc. That's a little under 15% of the budget proposal. Do you know whether you will attempt to pro rata that, or will you review? I mean, in other words, will it be the same level of reduction?
not necessarily, and that's something that we do need to work out because the organisations apply every year. They have to provide information to us every year, so some it's up to 20%, so some depending on their membership, if it is full membership from the borough. So that's what we would need to work out to make sure that there's not a disproportionate effect. But to see the organisations that we do fund, we have on the website the overall funding policies, so you can see the organisations and schools that we do give this discretionary money to. So we want to then think about the best way of.
Sorry, it's just a minor governance question. I'm just trying to get my head around page 87. Did the Cabinet agree these without having the equality analysis? And is that possible? Or have I misunderstood it?
No, sorry, the Cabinet actually noted them, and they said that the equality impact assessments were available to come to scrutiny, comments to then feedback. So these will go back to Cabinet to approve if that is the case. Haven't seen the equality impact assessments, so they didn't agree them in the October meeting.
So that's wrong there.
I think so. We produced the same paper. So the paper, it was announced at the meeting itself on the night that that's what would happen. But we've given you the actual papers that went to Cabinet. So a bit like the Brexit paper, that was what went to Cabinet, but Cabinet changed the one of the recommendations there. But sorry, I should have said they did change the recommendation here to note not to agree.
Thank you.
So we're happy generally to endorse that first statement. Yeah. Okay. Right, let's come on. Yes, feedback from the panels. We have a recommendation from your panel, which is already in our papers here.
It's on page 186.
Page 186. And I have, as a practice, generally endorsed recommendations from the panels because I don't want us to be rejudging on a meeting where we weren't present. This is a fairly modest proposal to increase the amount of tree planting, possibly at the expense of the money that went into our vehicle fleet. nothing more to add. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Chair, I wasn't actually at that meeting. I suppose just to let the panel know that if there was an increase of the number of street trees, then there would be an increase in the associated revenue cost of maintaining those trees, which I don't think was mentioned or allowed for, or given an indication of what that might be at the panel.
No.
No, so it's just to alert you to that.
I suppose putting in all the trees we haven't got any. And I think there's talk about asking local people to adopt a tree for the water look after.
Yes.
That maybe one way around saving
Mm.
costs.
Perhaps they're not sure how often they are watered. We would have this.
When it rains.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I've had this debate, I suppose that's the way of putting it, with one of my members in my ward who has claimed for years that nobody's ever come and watered their trees and they often die and so on because they're not being looked after or something. So
It's not just
I know
water,
now
there's
it's
the
a lot.
maintenance as
Right.
well. So, and then, particularly at this moment, the leaves. So just sort of draw attention and see if it's something to say.
Very good compost.
Best of repayments.
Okay, not to,
But anyway, I think they're good thing to have.
because I think she said her name, Jane Clark, has been in touch with a number of people asking them to adopt
Yeah.
newly planted
Every
trees
tree.
during the summer, and
Yeah.
have a number of people watering those. But, if we want these things, we should
Yeah, I think.
get hands on with it.
Right.
Okay. So, any feedback from
Yes, these points were brought up to Caroline, put to Caroline in the meeting. On page 145, where it says it would require deletion of posts and a reduction of provision for vulnerable children between 5 and 11 years. And we did say how we were concerned of the effect of cuts on children and young people. There were a growing number of referrals, and a recent report said a growing number, increase in public raising concerns, especially on child protection issues. So you did come back and said you were quite low in that, but the CYP is concerned about the reduction of facilities, support, resources for the least vulnerable of the vulnerable group of our children and young people. It is a concern. Because there is a growing number, there seems to be an increase in need.
Yeah. So that's been recorded? So we'll make sure that's... People, let me come to other communities.
One of the things I think is worth feeding into melody and Scrutiny panel is the concerns expressed by representatives of disabled groups in the borough on the impact. I think the more concern about not necessarily the immediate, the short term, but the medium term, and the feeling that this is a group of people living in our community who have already been taking blows in all sorts of directions, because in the same meeting we heard about people applying for personal independence payments, and it really is an absolute scandal. So the kind of our program this week, but people losing homes, people
Can I take us on to the capital programme? I'm looking in particular at page 114. So I can just ask Caroline one or two questions about things I don't understand. Customer contact programme, there's 1.9 million written in there for 2021-22. What's planned there?
We normally see, you'll probably see there's some of the social care system. We normally put some money aside for when we think we need to replace it. So we've put some money aside in 21-22 for some of the works that need to be done around Office 365 to actually help us maximise what we need to do there. So we just actually still see, is that the right amount of money and the right time to do that? But we do need to look at replacing some of the servers and that which already is being become perfect.
Just feeding down the same column, acquisitions budget, you've got a very neat 7,035,000. You've got something in mind?
Well, this was the budget we did have in 18-19. We've split it to 21-22 to improve the revenue financing. We did have something potentially in mind, but we need to see if someone's willing to sell it to us. So that's something just to help with more mortgage development. So that's what there is something potentially in. I just need to wait and see as to what it is.
You've been very mysterious, but is this a big answer? I think it's commercial in confidence.
And certainly because obviously we had the battle close where we had to buy something back which we weren't planning to, so it's good to have some money set aside just on the off chance that it may be needed.
I think the other interesting item here is with the housing company, which we know a little bit about. So the bulk of that spend is anticipated for next year.
We're waiting for an update of the business case, so some of that money may slip into future years, but certainly the bulk should be by 2021.
Everyone otherwise okay? Questions? Okay. So just waiting for us to consider whether there's anything we want to refer back to cabinet consideration. I mean, there is one thing, I think I said it last year, and I'll say it now, it's a shame we couldn't continue further forward than we are at this stage, because it puts an awful lot of pressure on January scrutiny round.
It always does though.
Yeah.
However much we say at this time that we'd like to see, it just never happens. So I think once.
Well, I can see why it's difficult, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, we all have that. It doesn't change, does it?
I don't think, my experience, I don't think is unique to this part of public sector. It's just the way that the sort of planning cycle works.
I would say certainly last year we had more than we have this year. So, but this year has been particularly lean. But hopefully there will be more coming into January.
Okay, nothing else people feel they want to take back, and obviously the price from Paris will be fed back. Good. Just come on to talk about the Youth Parliament. That's on page 187. a number of you were involved in our meeting with them.
Still meeting young people.
All you can know them off, but no.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you very much. For the two or fourth you. Do you want to say a word or two about this one?
Okay. Basically, the purpose of the report is to sort of feed back to you what happened at the sort of the joint exercise that was carried out between some members of the Youth Parliament and a number of councillors, including two, Peter and Sally, both there. And it was partly to help members of the Youth Parliament to understand what Scrutiny does and how to approach it, so they could think about how they wanted to get involved in future. And they wanted to do that by doing something real that they've done consultation on. So that's why they did it on keeping young people safe in Merton. And we were able to get Sergeant Mark Roberts in and Tony Teo, who came previously to the Commission from Safe in Merton, to sort of answer questions. And also the young advisors have done quite a lot of consultation with young people in Paris, so they talked about that with the councillors. And I thought they took a really active role in asking questions and in putting forward their own views. And I think the one thing that we've taken away as a learning point from that was that they didn't actually do it while the witnesses were there. So there was some challenge to what they were told, but they didn't really, we just hadn't geared it so that they could do it at that point. So in future, if we do it, we will make it really, really clear to them that it's okay to make those points while those people are still there. And, so that was good sort of confidence skills. So what they've asked is that the recommendations that they developed, and I'm sorry I didn't put any paragraph numbers on Appendix A at all, but basically the recommendations that they came up with are bullet points on page 193, and they're really asking that those points be taken forward to Cabinet by the Commission, sort of under the umbrella of the Commission. So that's just in relation to the sort of the substance of what was discussed. But we're also asking you to receive a further report in due course that will sort of set out some ideas for how we can involve them in suggesting topics for scrutiny, getting involved in task groups, getting involved in work programme items. And they won't necessarily be the topics that Children and Young People panel are doing, they might be, on different panels. So, for example, they're very interested in the task group that's going on at the moment on children's mental health. And they're talking to the scrutiny officer about how to feed their views into that.
I welcome the support. I remember there was a time I used to sit on the Children and Young People's panel when we did have young people come to the panel. And I think it was quite hard to keep them involved and motivated on panels, as you all know, they're quite lengthy agendas and not necessarily agendas that fit a young person. And obviously, and the time scale for it, because we meet in the evenings. Some councils don't, but we do, so that does impact as well. So, but I think involvement in task groups and stuff, I think it's a really good idea. And the more we can consider how they could be involved, I think it's important feeding into some of our reports, particularly through that panel, but it might be on other panels. Yeah. That was one area, and certainly that's the coming back to the recommendations, you've got about, and in the report, which it was quite sad that there was a talk of the cadets and the perceived stigma of joining and being associated with the police. That's in the report at the top of page 193. But obviously, I guess, joining the police cadets, it struck me that there's some it's not just police cadets that should be promoted in the schools, because we've got some new London Fire Cadets, which you know, we've got a brand new cadet force in Mitcham, and we'd love to see that expanded. So I think that would be a good one. And then of course there's other youth groups and the Explorer Scouts, which I'm involved with. But so it's just giving them a few more options, isn't it? So I think the police cadets are important. I'm not saying they're not, and they've been a great talisman in our borough. Isn't that wonderful? So police man, he still continues to support them, although he's retired. But the other point was about the head teachers, and I think that we need to make sure that those again are encouraged. But it struck me that there's no mention about governors, and they can also be helpful with some of this, I think, as well. It should be on the governor's lecture as well. So I suppose I'm going slightly, but I think it is important. Because we want to reduce things like there's comments here about stop and search and so on. So it's just how we approach it for them, so it's maybe a bit more realistic. But with governors, I think, on board as well.
I think just, if I could, the value for me of being there was how different their perspectives were from mine. We are how touch I can deal with these things. In particular, this fourth bullet point, to articulate what safe means. I think that's, if your journey to school or college is undertaken in fear, that we ought to go a bit of a shot, isn't it, to something like me.
And feeling safe in their own home.
Yeah.
But that is an element for some children.
Yeah.
Because of the circumstances they're living through.
So yes, I do. I can't see if we could take this forward, I think it's definitely worth doing. Okay.
But it's a good idea, as I said, that bit about the other cadet forces. It's not just the police. I think that's right.
Yes.
But if we don't know that, this is the thing, so it's quite small, so that's why I'm trying to highlight it really. I think that's part of our body. If it's coming back here, that's what I would want to send back there really. So I think that's quite important. So, and getting governments on board as well, encouraging them. Because some of the it's not critical, but it's sort of saying, well, so I think that's where it can be helpful.
Can't make suggestions in addition to this kind of
No. But I'm just saying that there is a gap between our perception. I mean, you mentioned governments, and I don't think they come onto their radar at all. Yes, they can, I'm sure, want to play a role, but as far as the young people are concerned, they don't see them in that light.
It's also interesting with the school police officers, because we often ask the commissioner and other guests that we have about the role of the police officers within school and the positive things we hear about they do. But then hearing from the youth members here that they don't really know them, find them difficult to approach.
Yeah.
Is an interesting point. So maybe they're not getting as much from that role as we think they are when we question some of the people that they have.
No, that was, as I say, one of the very sort of salutary. Well, they only said this after the police had gone, but they said, well, they're always changing or they've taken off onto another ship. So the police have given us the impression they were there as a constant, almost, but actually familiar, so they anybody built up trust. The reality we were told was otherwise. Frequent changes in personnel, never really got to know them. No effort made by the school to introduce them. So
And I think that's a key, that's a key point. So we should do.
All right. Work programme, we've got the heavy lifting next time with the budget. As my vice chair says, no. All right. We'll scurry home, catch up with the news. We're not already on Saturday. Thank you.
I was 5 minutes ago, never know what we're up to. Strong, stable government. Strong, stable government.